Hey everybody, we have with us tonight Chris Cyrus. He is the host of the Beyond Fringe channel on YouTube. This is one we through talking got to know him a little bit, and I really wanted to have him on because not only does he have a really fantastic take on investigations and the way to go about finding these cryptids. It's also just the mentality he puts behind it and the passion he has for this work was one that I really wanted to have him on the show to go in a little more of an in-depth with him on that. So everybody, Chris Cyrus is next.
Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is why I need you.
Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, gentlemen, we are back to keep this train rolling on talking cryptids. This is fantastic. We ended talking about Bigfoot and everything, and we are going to continue this on. We're welcoming Chris Cyrus to the show right now. How are you, sir?
Oh, good evening, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm very grateful to be here. Obviously, we had spoken prior before the show went live, and Craig, I had spoken to you about it, but Chris and Austin, for you guys also to hear it as well. I've been following your guys' show for quite a while, and me and Craig have spoken on Messenger on Facebook for a while as well, and I really like your guys' format, and I really like how you guys as a trio have an open-minded but respectful opinion between all three of you, and I really like the topics you bring to the table. So with that also being said, I just wanted to go on and say I'm glad to be here, and I want to thank you guys for doing what you do as well and your contributions to this field.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And a little bit, we've talked about before, we'll just get the heavy stuff right out of the way. You've shut down the Beyond Fringe channel at this moment.
That is correct. Yes.
Do you want to get into why? The whys in that, or just rather not?
Well, I'm very open to discussion about that. I mean, it's no biggie with me. Personally, this has been something that I've been very quiet about. I haven't posted any content on my channel lately, and that is because I have had a bit of a loss of an interest with the topic, and that being is because of particularly a series of events personally on how social media operates, whether it's with how certain groups and crowds operate and what they take in and what goes around. And then, of course, drama, just like in general, whether it's paranormal, whether it's, cryptid or even UFO, it happens in every field. But personally, I kind of guess you can say I've lost my bit of a passion for it. I know you brought it up in the promo, discussing what I'm going to be talking about. I'm very open for discussion on doing this. And Craig, we spoke prior about a couple months ago about doing a show. And this time I was still doing it. And I wasn't going to just say, hey, listen, I don't want to do the show because I lost my interest. You guys are a great trio. And, Craig, I have a lot of respect for you. And Austin, Chris, I get to know you guys as well tonight. And, I have a contribution, and that's who I am. The same way I am to those who I see who have potential in this field. And I've mentored and talked to. And for them, I stick for them. Right now, I'm not investigating. Right now, I'm not doing any shows. Will my passion, of course, will my interest come back down the road? Absolutely. Right now I'm also in a life changing event. Nothing, heinous or anything, but more or less, focusing on more of myself. There's a lot of important goals that I'm ready to accomplish come next year. And even now this year, there's a lot of things that have been accomplished and still ongoing. So it's kind of on hiatus really, but will I come back to it in a couple months? I wouldn't say no. At the same time, probably, who knows? But I'm here also too to say, listen, for me, who I am, what I do on my show, I talk about honesty. I like to be honest. I don't like to go ahead and I like to go about things and say things because I'm not about conflicts. I don't like to put out dirty laundry on anything. Mm-hmm. And even so, when I was younger, yes, but I'm an adult now. And I'm more focused on trying to be an adult and take care of my own personal life because everybody has to. We all have to grow up at one point. And that's what I put a lot of work into in the last couple of years, even when I was doing my show. So more important. So the whole moral of this is that for right now, for what I've been going through and seeing a lot in the field of things lately, I just feel it's just best just walk away. But at the same time, to sit here tonight and discuss something that I do enjoy talking about with people who are very open-minded and genuine, and I know have no deception and negativity that I've experienced in the community. But I will say, though, that what I talk about tonight is, of course, openly my honest opinion on things, whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, Mothman, UFOs, paranormal, anything. I'm not saying anybody has to agree with me. You can disagree with me. That's perfectly fine. I'm here for open discussion. I'm here to discuss things with people who are of interest. So the long answer to that question, but hopefully that was a good enough response.
No, absolutely. That's actually, I would say that was actually probably more perfect because, with the kind words you said about us, I mean, that's always been my goal. I don't know if I ever really articulated this on any show, but one of the things for me has always been when I first set out to wanted to do a podcast, I wanted to do shows that when I would search it up, I couldn't find it. So why not, if you can't find it, why not just do it? So we morphed into this, but the ones that for me that seem to do the most like impact, the ones that I really stick with me the most are when we have instances like what you just did, where it's the real story. It's not fake. It's what you're actually going through, what your passions are. Because when we originally talked, we're going to talk Bigfoot, we're going to talk Dogman, we're going to talk this, we're going to talk a little bit, but this is actually almost like a perfect fitting for the show we just did. Because Brian Seach, we brought up that part where this negative side of this group, where people are attacked, people are trolled, people are saying, and what a better way to bring yourself in who is now a real-time experiencer of that negative side, who has actually, gone through this thing to where you can actually tell people and actually have that story. And so, it works out great. I mean, nothing you need to apologize for, because this is actually even, I would say, is even more fantastic than just one. All right, let's get the Wikipedia research out, and start talking about that. So, I mean, I'm just going through the whole thing, like how the best way to, because I said I'm not going to scrap everything, because one, you put so much effort into that part of your life. But do you feel that this is like there's going to be a change in this, where to more people is going to be more accepting, or do you think this is right now this is going to have to come in per se kind of to a head where we're going to have to figure out as a community, where we go forward, or
It's a very good question, and personally, the only solid answer is to figure out where the road goes from here. It's only going to get worse for it to get better, as they say. But I'm going to give you an answer that I hope can be logically explanatory for those because it is a good question. It really is, because I myself, this is what I've kind of hoped for a while, and it really depends on what community, what group you're in, who you side with. I feel that because social media has opened up so many doors for us, right? We've been able to connect more about these subjects because we have a better way of engagement. We don't have to worry about going on a hotline being ridiculed. We don't have to worry about going through papers and ads to find people. We can go on Facebook and find groups. Now, I'll take back one thing I just said about ridicule, because there are signs of ridicule, absolutely, but not as mainstream and hardcore as it was back in the day when people didn't have these outlets. But the problem is that when we do grow these outlets, we also grow reputation. We also grow a sense of control. And I feel that the more we put control into our own rules we make up and our own laws, the more we become immune towards control that leads to an amounts of abrasive deception, to amounts of just cruelty, which unfortunately is that negativity. And sadly, I've faced it. And while I've had conflicts with those in the past, I'm not here to simply go out on a limb and say, look, I'm not trying to start nothing, because that's not what I'm trying to do here. Maybe when I first started getting into this whole social media engagement, absolutely. Maybe I came off very cocky and tried to prove myself, sure. But you know what? I've grown up. I'm done with that stuff. I have no issues. I don't want no issues with nobody. The fact that if my name is still brought up on certain topics or whatever, it's like, just let it go. There's nothing to gain out of it. It's done. You've proved it. Whether it's this and that, going behind this and that, who knows? It doesn't change the fact that, this doesn't help research. And you have that small percentage of people who don't want to share content because they're afraid. They're afraid of seeing the same bullying, the same nonsense, the same hysteria that we see all the time. They don't want to share nothing. And people will make fun of it. They're like, well, what's the point of believing in these things if, no one wants to share evidence? Well, there's also factors of people with ridicule, how people treat each other on social media. It's so negative. And look, I'm not trying to sound dramatic. I'm just simply pointing out what I've seen, what I've seen others go through, what my friends have gone through, whether it's been through this topic or personally. And, that's what also drained my passion for it. There was just no need for it. Now, when we talk about where it goes today, I bring that up as an example because if we want to get somewhere, we need to compromise. The drama, one thing. Secondary, our belief systems. I'm sure you all have heard almost 100 belief systems on Bigfoot. I guarantee you've heard, and you probably have a few different ideas on it, and that's okay. But I think what holds us back is then when we have all these theories, all these beliefs, and I feel we need to increase that. I feel we need to compromise it because I feel that people get into this, but not everybody goes out and investigates. Some people may be afraid of investigating, that maybe never been out in the woods before. They've been curious of it. They're enthusiasts more than investigators. I was an enthusiast before I became an investigator. I just think that it's a matter of just listening to what people have to say. You had Ken Genhart on here about a couple months ago. And I like Ken. I've never spoken with Ken, but I've listened to a lot of his interviews on a lot of shows, and I like what he has to say. And he has a book out, and he has a lot of books, and he has a very good sense of knowledge on some things that I do like in reference to the Bigfoot creature and what he believes in. Now, more or less, if we have more folk who are investigators on the boots on the ground can promote that, can show that encouragement that says, look, you want to go out and investigate, we'll go about. There's connections. You have organizations. I know some people have good and bad experiences with organizations, but I think what it all boils down to is if you really want to know and find answers to all this, you go out there, you take your notes, listen to either these podcasts that are informative, and it's very easy to tell what's informative and what isn't informative. I'm sure anybody can tell the difference between a horror narration and a podcast interview of an investigator. Even if you look up cryptid investigator interviews, for example, and listen to what they have to say, then that's a good start. That you put in certain keywords that are going to allude to what you want to do. And I feel that it's only going to get better for us here in cryptid and even the paranormal and UFO communities too, because it happens in every community. We just have to take better care of what we have to say, of how we go about things. We don't need to have all this unnecessary conflict over a belief or because this person did this or that. It doesn't help research. It really doesn't. But I didn't mean to babble on that.
Oh, no. That's
a great question.
No, I agree. we talked a little bit the last show too. It was just the same thing for me. I believe that people should be believed. It's just so, Chris, if you walk up and say, I just saw Dogman out in my my backyard, off the face right here, you should be believed. You saw something. Now is when the research, the actual science, like for me, the scientific side comes in. Now steps must be taken. Take your notes. What did you see? What was the conditions? Where was it? And then we go out. Now we look for physical evidence. Because the ones like for me that I usually, and I've used those references, the part I have issues with is like the ones that say, I just saw, I have 20 dogmen that run in a pack that are out there in this field and I see them all the time. But yet anytime that they've been asked, well, what else do you see? Well, I can't get any close to them because they don't want to be, they don't want to be captured. They want to, they're skittish, but I'm starting to earn their trust. And when you have these type of people, this isn't ridicule, but as a community, one of the things we have to ask is like, where is the physical evidence? I want to believe you. I want to see this. Like I said, shouldn't be attacked. Like when Mona on the last show, she's talking to her, she had an experience and she was afraid she was going to be ridiculed if she came forward. This is the part we need to be welcoming these people in. Like, tell us what you have. Let's go do the research. If we can't recreate it, then this goes into a category of a one-off that we saw something. Now, if we see it again, we can revisit this. Doesn't mean these people are crazy. It just means we have these details that we start taking these things down. Just the ones I have is the pareidoia, like the ones that always give you the blurred photograph 40 times a day, saying everything that they have here, and you can't get them any further. There's no physical evidence, and at some point you're like, if you can get this many photographs of these things, there should be something, hair, footprints, something.
I wanted to let you finish because I have a tendency of getting intervening and cutting people off because you have no idea. I agree so heartily. Pareidolia, I've been dealing with it for the last 6 years, looking at photographs, and I don't want to be that person that sits there and says, listen, I see nothing here, but I have to be honest with somebody. And I know that was one of my biggest conflicts with people in groups for the longest time. And, nowadays I'm growing more immune to it. I'm focusing more on an image because I think one of the crazy things about when somebody sees something is that, and I noticed this when I was having an interview with one of my good buddies. He explained to me that like when we look at a photograph, we're enhancing it, that pixel. What may look like a blob may not be because of the way the camera quality is. And that is a good thing too, because camera quality is different on a variety of apps. Messenger has different camera quality for one. So Facebook too. So anyways, I mean, like all these qualities of imageries, we see things that may be there, but I even say to people, it's like, well, I don't see nothing there, but it doesn't mean that there's anything there. If you give me information on where it was taken and I can connect some dots and see if there's been connections with other cryptids, whether we have Bigfoot sightings, whether there's been strange occurrences within the area, hauntings, some connection that there's more to the place than normal, if that makes sense. So ultimately, it's kind of like a bridge almost, and it's just trying to get across it when it comes to trying to debunk what a lot of people say, because maybe some people do say things that is there, but really to us, we don't see it. That's also a result of just not just having 20/20 vision or having good eyes or just, being smart, like, there's nothing there. But the fact being, we see things that we know. As researchers, we've been doing this for years. We know what certain things are. And if you're outdoorsman, for one, like you go out there in the woods and you know what a tree bark is, or what like twigs and whatnot, how you can identify. Because I can tell you when I see like a few different trees and stuff, they're all cut down and whatnot, it looks like there's somebody, but there clearly isn't, because it's just a tree, and it freaks you out at first because you're like, oh my god. But yeah, I agree with everything you've said though, because it's true. And I think that's another reason that holds back a lot of folk who want to share evidence as well.
But to piggyback off of what you said, I mean, it's sad to see you go for now, because you had great following, and all the ridiculers, it gets aggravating at a time when you're just trying to do it to put information out, and it's your passion. If that's not your passion, move along. Hey, move along off my page, or move, we don't need your comments, because there is people like us, Boston Paranormal. There is people that sees things, and you were actually in the trenches, so you have a little bit more in depth than some people who's just never left their yard, and they're like, oh, that's fake. That's fake. I mean, do some research yourself if you really want to debunk what he's trying to say. I mean, it just gets old over time. I just hope your passion comes back for it, because you speak really well, and
I really appreciate that. I will say this, like I said, I mean, for right now, it's something that's on hiatus, but who knows? Maybe I'll get back into it once things quiet down, or once things just go ahead and like, listen, we got to grow up at some point and move on from all the drama. Listen, the big thing about what it boils down to is that even though it was with trolls, it also got to a point where it's like other channels attacking, and there's no need for that. Whether people who are supporters of that channel coming after, and then it almost becomes and I'm going to use this in the key form because it's how social media and how it made me lose that. It was, and how I put it, almost a nuclear conflict because of how ridiculous it really was, left and right. But I do appreciate the comment, though, Chris. I really do, because, it is something that I do like doing still. I mean, I do have contact with so many people. And if people do want my help, if they say, listen, I'd rather talk with Chris Cyrus, he has a good, honest point. Listen, my inbox is open. I have no problem doing that, because I'm not going to just stop and not help somebody because I'm not in that passion, because I want to help someone. I want to make sure that this problem is solved, whether I can handle it or the help with a couple other investigators, because that's how I operate. It's important. I feel that ever since I started getting into investigations and started doing the podcast, that's just part of how it is. Even though you can take a break or a hiatus or not do it, you could still help somebody, so.
I don't think you understand how near and dear we are in that topic. These guys know I have zero interest in MMA, fighting type shows right now. After we had our thing, where
that was the longest 6 months.
We went our separate ways, and it was internal, issues. It wasn't so much, but it's one of those, like, I honestly, like, some of the fighters that we've in Friends, I have a really close relationship with them, to where on that level. But when it actually comes to going to an event, doing any of this stuff, so I feel like I honestly get where you're coming from. I mean, I have a feeling you're the same way with me. Like, if somebody came right now, Chris, do you want to go to this Dogman conference? You're going to be like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
He doesn't sound as bad as you, Craig. I mean, I'm in the fight community still, so I got to know a lot of fighters, and I still talk to them, and every time I say something to him about it, he rolls his eyes. But you on the other hand, you said if somebody inboxes you, you're willing to help. Craig is like, no, not at all.
I mean, if they need help, like I said, you just have some of the people I really, I'll help him out. But man, it's one of those things. He's always like, hey, you want to go to a fight? No, I'm good. I'm really good.
I interviewed an individual who was actually an amateur mixed martial artist who had seen a Bigfoot cross the road. Freaked him out.
Oh,
wow.
Guy had a bad night of cauliflower ear because he had a very heavy fight. And I'm on the East Coast, so in the tri-state area in New York, he had a tournament over there, and he was at East Rutherford, and he was crossing through the tri-state, going through the PA border, and he was going down a particular road and happened to see something giant, like 9 feet tall, cross. It was like 12 a.m., so the headlights illuminated like brown, blackish like fur. But it freaked him out because, for one, like, he's like 6 feet tall, and he's big, and he's a big guy. But it freaked him out because it was the fact that the thing, it was big enough if he felt like, hey, this thing could have lifted the car up and ripped off the hinge of the car door. You know, if it was really like that was the kind of the thing, you know, so it freaked him out so bad. But to get an idea out of somebody, I mean, anybody who's seen a Bigfoot, you see a Bigfoot or a dogman, especially if you see dogman, people would be freaked out because, I mean, hey, any outdoorsman when they were either young or starting out and when they were young adults in outdoors or hunting, they first time seeing a bear, you'd be scared. I was scared when I first saw my first bear. I saw a black bear. It freaked me out. And anybody can see Bigfoot, okay? And they'd be like, okay, if it's 8 feet, 9 feet tall. I don't think they're like, I feel sometimes they're like, if the people who say they're 15 feet tall or like more, I kind of have an issue with that. I think that's a bit exaggerated, especially because if you look at the heights, it's about close to the size of an oak tree, maybe less. But that's like basically saying that there's this giant hairy creature, like bigger than the Gigantus, or the mountain folk, of course, the outdoor giants, roam in the woods. But anyways, so yeah, no, my point being to all this is that when you look at like people who have like Bigfoot encounters, I think there's a terror factor there because they've never seen this before. There's fear factors into play. I don't know how many people you've come across or spoken that have really encountered Bigfoots or dogmen, but I can assure you that when they've seen it, it's definitely never left their mind. I know one of my closest friends had a dogman encounter, and it was incredible. It's kind of where I started with the podcast. So,
yeah, and that's, you know, you can see where that, you know, you get the passion. I mean, that's, you know, I was some of the comments like people there. It's like it was a little on the harsh side. I don't hate the community. I'm like, it's not a hate thing. It's just it's one of those. The passion.
You hate doing MMA shows.
Gone.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I just
saw that.
Yeah,
MMA is a good sport, man. We talk about it all the time on our other shows. It's the same thing. Like Robert has I forgot what it's called. Fight Book MMA, I think what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like every 2 shows a night, every single Wednesday and Sunday was what do you do? How do you train? You know, who are you fighting every single time? And we just got so bored of it. And
yeah,
that was it. You know, I love watching MMA. I do, but
we have
want to podcast about it.
You know, Debbie was on there. She just commented. You know, she's one of our longtime things. You know, absolutely love her. You know, she's an amazing. You know, she's been one of our biggest supporters. You know, she's huge in that community. Roberto, you know, wealth of knowledge when it comes to that stuff. That guy, you know, his show, they said he has that stuff down. I don't have the backstory thing. I don't, and it was just, so for me, it was just, when that thing happened, it just, the passion, there wasn't the passion there. And so, I mean, I really, truly get where you're coming from, where it's just, I just want to take a step back. You know, maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll want to do an interview later on. It just, right now, it's like, it feels good to just set that aside.
I also think just expressing, and you 100% agree with you. I just think also expressing it as well with other folk who want to hear what you got to say. And I mean, listen, I did an interview with a buddy of mine who also, I did a show with him about a couple weeks ago. And that was my first interview I did in like 4 months. So it was brief, but I did it for him because, you know, he's an investigator. He goes out and he researches Dogman and Daniel Boone National Forest, and it's a big hot spot for Dogman. So, you know, I interview researchers. I want people who are the real deal, you know, so.
Yeah, and Abe, he's commenting on there. It's just, he started out, you know, it's like, glad to see you're back on.
Yeah, hey Abe, it's great to hear from you, bud.
Yeah, he's like, I have
that
a former
dude is jacked.
I know. The camera angle, he's got some those arms go. That's impressive.
We need to talk later about some workouts, man.
You know, he says he had a form of PTSD after his encounter, moved from that area, but it always comes to mind. I can imagine, and from you being a researcher in there, what's probably, I'd say, you know, what was probably the most intense experience you had while doing those things? Because that, I know, like there's some, I'm sure that you probably can where it freaks you out.
I think it's more or less the fact that I've never had an encounter with one of these things, and I have so many people that tell me these events, and it's like you build this image in your head what they see. Now, I've interviewed over 100-something people, if not more, and in the last 7 to 8 years that I've grown an interest back into it, and at the time, and was working with it, I basically would hear what these people had to say, and it would freak me out a bit because it was more their emotions. And I think that's something that really plays a factor, and it's criminally not looked at. I think it's overlooked because people want to hear the encounter. And trust me, the encounters are scary. I could tell when someone's telling me something that's a legitimate case and when it's not. And I can tell when they use a lot of detail in what they're doing in the atmosphere, the environment, describing the environment. Not the detail of what they see. They could describe in detail what they see of the creature, but anybody could if you had a genuine case. Sometimes you can't get a good look at it. That's always happens in about maybe, let's take a quick statistic, like maybe 48% of cases, some people don't really have a lot of description because it's a brief encounter, it's a quick encounter. But also take a look at it from another percentage where, yeah, people do, when they do see these things, it's terrifying. I mentioned that I had somebody close that I know, a friend of mine. He doesn't live in the state no more, but he moved. He had this encounter 5 years ago. I shared with it on a couple other podcasts, and it was an encounter that he had in the Pine Barrens, New Jersey. It was by the Wharton State Forest, and he and his buddy were out camping that one night. It was in the fall, so it was in November of 2016, and he and his buddy were hearing noises about north of him. He had a headlamp and a flashlight, and they all went out and they just investigated. And lo and behold, they had seen something crouching down in the bushes with amber eye shine, and it freaked him out. And I think when he explained it to me, he had broken down in tears. Wow. That was how traumatizing it was for him. And nothing else happened afterwards. It was just the fact that the light flashed on it. It reminded me of like Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Mm-hmm. When he pops out of the bushes and kills Franklin. And I only say that because it's just like when you shine your light at something in the dark, I've shined my light at deer before and I've seen their eye shine and it freaked me out. But to see a werewolf looking creature thin of night like that, that's traumatizing. Abe brings up PTSD. I've spoken to Abe before, and Abe's a great guy. And I can tell you that, yeah, PTSD does play a huge role in all this, because my buddy, he broke down in tears. He was traumatized by it. He moved to the city because he couldn't bear to be any county line because he feared the creatures. He feared that he would probably see this thing again. And that's a detail that I found out actually just recently because he moved. He had a better job opportunity. But he also explained it to me because he is still affected by this encounter to this day. That was 5 years ago. Well, going on 5 years. But it was such you talk about one of the scariest parts. I think it's just listening to what an eyewitness has to say and how terrified they are. And then also, too, when I look at it from an investigation standpoint, I can go out with some people, or sometimes I might go to a local park and I'll go out by myself because I look at the grounds. I know it. But I've seen things that are weird, maybe just teenagers messing around. Like I've seen a pentagram engraved. I actually have a photograph of that I can share with you guys one day.
That'd be cool.
I've seen broken glass. I've seen spray paint. I've seen like symbols and stuff. I can also share photos of that too. I have to find them, but it's like when I was going out to these older areas back years ago and just trying to get the vibe of the area. And just how creepy it is. And I think that's the scary part too, is because you don't know what else is out there. I could be looking for a Bigfoot. Maybe there's a bear right around my perimeter. Maybe there's some lunatic who might be out in the woods. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't go.
You said that. I was like, that was the first thing I thought. There was one interview I saw these guys. These two guys, they're out. They could barely see them on the camera. I mean, it's just like almost pitch black. They're talking. They got like this low lit campfire. They're out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. And the whole thing I'm thinking is like, they're out there looking for Bigfoot. I'm like, can you imagine how traumatizing this is going to be for all of us when a bear just comes out of nowhere and just eats one of the guys right there on camera? I'm like, we're all going to have PTSD from watching this Bigfoot show, with this guy. I'm like, oh my God, it's And so I can imagine, like you said, if you see something like this that you can't explain, I'm like, it would be very hard to get somebody like that to get back out in that area.
Yeah. And like, I don't go into the woods unarmed. Obviously, I have a form of protection on me because, like I said, whether it's not Bigfoot or a dogman, it's a bear. Or my area, I look at what's around my perimeter. We have coyotes, we have bear. So obviously, there's a format that we got to be cautious on because there's other things out there. And also, too, what you bring up, too, one of the crazy things about cryptozoology is that people go out there and they want to seek these things. They want to think that, oh, we want to go and find Bigfoot. Let's see if we can find Bigfoot. Let's summon Bigfoot. I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, summoning or going about wanting to do this type of stuff, you're not going to get far. And that's somebody out there I wouldn't want to trust putting into the field when it comes to research, because that person might get somebody harmed or themselves harmed, because they're going to use the tactics of going about guns blazing and not thinking, because of either it's going to be a Bigfoot that knocks them down, or it's going to be a bear, or it's going to be a tree or something, or a bear trap. You'd be very surprised that there's some people that lay out traps in some of these areas, and it's scary stuff. So it's not just, Bigfoot and animals out there that I think people around New Jersey have to worry about. There's so much out there in the woods. It's just,
there's some crazies out there.
It's crazy. It really is.
No, and that was one of those, kind of, maybe crazy is a horrible, segue, to this part. But one of the things, we had a conversation with somebody earlier today. Do you think that there is psychologically, do you think there's a certain percentage out there where they so desperately want to be part of the group, they want to be part of this phenomena, that they almost convince themselves that they have seen something? And that's right. And that's what I said. It's not like a slam on people, but I mean, there seems to be, because when you talk to them, like you were saying, they recount the story, they have it, but then as soon as you press them on a detail, that's the problem right there. It's like a lockup. There's nothing past that deal. They're chapter 1's all they wrote. They didn't think you're going to be interested past chapter 1.
What a great question. This is a question that I actually even had myself for the longest time. And I've had conversations with a few associates of mine, and I've come to this conclusion that a lot of the people in these type of communities, that there is a mental illness that plays a factor in a lot of what they talk about. Because I noticed that a lot of people, when they get into a lot of the supernatural type of things, or things that I'm a very as you know, I'm very sharpshooter type of guy. Mm-hmm. I have a very open mind with things, but I'm blunt with things. And that's something that I've been known for. And to put it in perspective, I personally feel that with what the state of this community and how it operates, I feel there is a percentage that do have a mental problem, not in a bad way, but that they've had this psychologically, like you said, it's affected them. That, yeah, you know what? We can research dogmen day and night, but then we kind of feel like it's part of us. We have these dreams. You look at psychology reports about how we affect in dreams. What's on our mindset? What affects us with dreams? I can tell you that I've had dreams about driving in a car fast, nuclear weapons, 1,000 things off and on. And some of it's fun, some of it's scary, but like psychologically, it's what's on my mind, what I'm thinking, what I illustrate as a designer. People who are thinking about dogmen and get into this mental stage of mind, thinking that dogmen are this and that. Same thing with even paranormal and UFO stuff, topics like that. You know, you have people who say that they've seen UFO, but really they told just a couple lights, but they mentally believed they had seen UFOs.
Yeah, that was kind of almost exactly what I was going to kind of follow up with. That is, you know, because I've got the thing right there. I want to believe. I have the picture right there.
Right.
I'm worried that I'm going to be out there and just be like, I'm going to be convinced, just force myself to see a UFO. Like I saw one. There it was. And realistically, it was Elon's, next ring of satellites that just flew by. And it's just. But I'm convinced I saw you. I'm worried that I'm going to fall trap in that. And so that's kind of what I want to bring you in that. If you felt like, it's not even. I don't even think it's like a narcissistic thing. Like they intentionally want, I'm sure there are some. I'm not going to go, I'm sure there are some that they're basically, glory hounds, for the better, things. They want the attention.
Yep.
But there's got to be some people where unwillingly, they just, like you said, they so desperately want to see it that they heard that branch snap, which was just natural gravity taking a branch. Because anybody that's been out in the woods, trees fall. Branches fall. You're going to hear it. Doesn't mean there's, ginger squatches out there swinging from tree to tree, snapping, and that's for anybody that doesn't know, that's the inside joke. That's one of the nicknames for Austin down there. He's the ginger squatch. I have a whole backstory. I'll write it up sometime.
Mine's Etch and Sketch. My memory is so short when it comes to short term. He calls me Etch and Sketch. So.
Yeah.
Damn.
But yeah, oh no, it is like the joke. Just a little side note for Chris. It's like I'll tell him something, and it's just like you're like, so Chris, what are we talking about? Like, are you kidding me?
So we had a question. I don't know if you could see it or not. Robert Villa asked, "What's your favorite channel in the field?" Roberto Villa asked, "If you watch anything or if you watch any in this field, what is your favorite channels and why?"
I don't really, honestly, as somebody who does cover these topics, I don't really watch other people's content really, besides maybe a couple. There's Dogman Encounters with Vic Cundiff. I've always liked his show. I know a lot of people are skeptical of the show at times because of the guest. I know I've had the same issue with my show as well, but it's it's a very interesting show with what people come on and talk about. And it's basically the very first, to me, in my opinion, it was one of the very first few Dogman shows out there that really got the word. But I don't want to talk about, I wouldn't say my favorite channel. That would be maybe that's a great channel. I also like Beyond Fringe Investigations because it's a not my channel, but my one associate, him and his buddy, they do a podcast show too. They're very informative. That's why I follow them. But if you really want to ask me what one of the best things I want to listen to, I mean, besides your show, of course.
We appreciate it.
I'd have to go ahead and I have to say Coast to Coast. I love Coast to Coast. And Coast to Coast is one of the reasons why I got back into cryptozoology at the time, why I liked paranormal at the time. I love George Norrie, Ian Punnett, Art Bell, the late Art Bell, all these amazing individuals who've pioneered this format, what gave us these podcast outlets. I personally feel Coast to Coast is a huge inspiration for what we're doing here.
I agree completely. That's as you were saying that, it took me back to just the times like even working graveyard back 20 years ago, had the little pocket radio. The guy I worked with, he had that little pocket radio because we didn't have it, there wasn't streaming at the time, so you'd have to dial into the radio station and he'd have it through the speaker. And so we both almost look like a couple because we're right next to each other stocking shelves so we can listen to. I mean, I still remember the episode, where they're interviewing the guy that claimed he was the devil. Right. And so you have these in your mind, and it just, right as you're saying that, it's all those memories just flooded back. And just as the music's kicking on, dun, 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 you're like Coast to Coast. I mean, boom. Yeah. That's a huge influence.
Turn on the radio at 11 p.m. at night and just listen and see. I'm a designer, so sometimes I might just illustrate through my notebook or whatever, or just come up with new ideas on the computer and just go ahead and just listen to some Coast to Coast in the background. And personally, you really kind of learn a lot about what people start and how you kind of learn how to do a format. Like podcasting guys, I mean, listen, you guys, you do great as a podcasting trio. You know what to do and say, and you have personality. That's the most important thing. But on top of all that, the other important thing is bringing the guest, keeping that guest motivated to answer all of your questions. And I notice with a lot of what people talk about on Coast to Coast, whether it's new Coast to Coast, current Coast to Coast, or past Coast to Coast, there's always a story. And I feel that whether it's a story that we can interpret as real or fake, we don't know. We only just go by what it is. But the most important thing is that when you have callers call in and talk about their stories, it's not about listening to what people have to say about things. And that's where I think that also goes back to a discussion about like how psychologically people are affected in the community of things. Because it's like we listen to all these encounters and we think, wow, these things really exist. You can listen to 30 episodes of Dogman Encounters, or you can listen to 30 episodes of Sasquatch Chronicles, and you'd be thinking, oh my God, Bigfoot's in my backyard.
Yeah, exactly. Paul Chapin says, "What's up, man?"
Paulie, how you doing, buddy? It's great to have you here as well, bud.
It's thanks for everybody for tuning in. That's good. That is. I mean, you listen to some of those stories, and that's the thing. I loved having those things because you'd have, hey, yeah, Trucker Dave, is going, he's cruising down the interstate, and he's talking about some crazy ghost, story that he just ran into at the truck stop back before, and it was all those stories that were just, and I love this. It's like I'm going down through memory lane, just listening to all these episodes that I had, and those are the ones that stick with you. And kind of when we talked about in the beginning of this show, this is what I like, is when we have a real conversation like this. Absolutely. It's not scripted. You're actually getting the details out, which is really cool.
It's important, I think, especially if you want people to learn, to understand what we're doing, because I've had people of my youth who have asked me questions about it, and I can tell them this and that, and they're going to look at me as if I just got done having the best trip of my life because I've found knowledge with things. Because if I could tell them about evolution of Bigfoot, or what we believe can be evolution of Bigfoot, or more importantly, let's discuss all these maps, these dots, these red dots here, all Bigfoot sightings and their location, scare the hell out of them. Because they're going to be there, oh my God, like this thing is there. There's where the fear factor comes into play. I've spoken to witnesses as well who changed their curfew, changed their time while they have a curfew, and they change their daily life. They wake up at like 6, wait for the sun to come up fully. They go to work. They got to work at 4. They don't have a social life. They go back and they have the doors locked by 7. So they don't want to go out in the woods. They don't want to know what's out there. And some people I know, it's scary to think about it too, because that just goes to show you the psychological aspect of somebody. Okay. Like, I knew a witness, of course, for example, who had a lot of dogman activity on her property. She was so psychologically affected by it that she had to move her and her family to her mother's house. This happened in the UK. And
wow,
this activity was going on for about almost 14 months. I unfortunately lost contact with her, but I did do an episode on it. It was called the South Yorkshire Dogman. You can find it on my channel. I had 2 investigators who gave their opinion on it, and that lifestyle choices and the way the environment looked was a source of territory that was intimidating. In other words, that this creature was reacting by the behaviors and by the sense of how the female was, the main female of the household. It was almost like that thing where like the I guess the Omega has an issue with the Alpha, and it's kind of like that conflict. It's just that it's dogman and a human. But there's also, there was more to this case. There was some violent outbursts at one point. There was a stone thrown at a window. And of course, that's what also led to this family to move away from this location, because there's 1,000 factors that play out in what plays with psychologically with what people see. People who have Bigfoot encounters are terrified, but when people have dogman encounters, people are always come up and they're so freaked out by it. And I think it's the fact that it looks like a werewolf. I mean, look, if we had a werewolf coming right at you, a bipedal running at me, I mean, I'm going to describe it that's going to freak me out. And I describe it as a werewolf because that's really what people describe it as. Linda Godfrey, one of the pioneers of the Dogman topic, when she did the Beast of Bray Road book, it was literally as best described as a werewolf or a man wolf. But is it a real werewolf? I don't think so. I think it's something separate. I feel if it was a werewolf that we're looking into something different, more supernatural. I don't know if that was probably one of the questions up ahead about if what I believe these could be, but I've kind of given away flesh and blood because, going on to it, because I just think that if it was something supernatural, that it's something that's abnormal. We're dealing with something totally different, and you need to have more than just an on-field investigator to open that door. You need someone who's into that field who can help us with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I got a question for you, though. And, I'm going to start off with saying I am a believer because there's millions of miles of forest, maybe not that many, but there's deep, deep woods that nobody has ever touched. So what do you think about, as far as there's 4K trail cameras. Do you think they're smart enough to dodge the cameras, or are they just, if they smell humans like a deer, they won't come in that area? And it's all about scent every animal smells stuff. So they're like, oh no, that's a human. Oh, that's something I don't want to be contacted with. So what do you think on that?
It's a good question because I was asked that a while back, and I gave the answer of infrasound being one, but I also see it from the fact that when an investigator is on ground, they know that someone's in their territory. I'm guaranteed that they can hear movement from far distances. I went out investigating in March with a fellow investigator down in South Jersey, and we investigated a park that had reported activity of Bigfoot and some brief paranormal activity. That's my self-portrait, by the way. And when he was out investigating, when we were both out, we had found the area was quiet, but we can tell that there might have been something there. It was still late winter, but it was still none the lines. It was just one of those cases where we feel that there was something there. We didn't have enough signs to say, okay, that there was. We didn't find any tracks. We didn't find any structures that came off as if it was a structure done by a storm, of course. But nonetheless, I do think that they know that people are there and they try to dodge any type of evidence. Personally, when someone does get a picture of a Bigfoot, it's shaky, as we talked about pareidolia being a factor. I strongly do think that. I do think that some of us maybe don't want to see a Bigfoot, and when we do see one, who's going to take a picture of one when our heart's racing because this thing is going to kill me? That is our reaction when somebody who's never seen a Bigfoot, never knows what it is, looks at it. That's what my reaction. That's the reaction of my friend who saw the Dogman. He was freaked out by that. He was so freaked out that he thought this thing was going to kill him. It looked that vicious to him. But you bring up those pictures of the Dogman. This first photograph you brought up was a sketch. It was done for a contest, for a Michigan Dogman contest in 2006 or 7. And that is probably one of the most accurate depictions of what the creature looks like. It has that muzzle, that snout you can see. Look at the pointy ears. And people have seen that. And they've noticed that the ears are so raised up high. And the eye shine, the amber illuminated eye shine, or some people have said red eye shine. Do I think it's demonic if it's red eye shine? No, because deer have been spotted with red eyes, and I don't think a deer is a demon. But I'm an outdoors person, so I like to think naturally. So
anybody who has a pet, I mean, you shine a light on their face, their eyes glow.
Exactly. I have dogs, their eyes glow, and it freaks me out at night because I think I don't know what it is. When you study this stuff and you see things differently, anything, you're like, wow, that freaks you out a bit. I mean, that's my brief paranoia, but everybody's different. But that image is so freaky to me still, even to this day, because it just looks so real. Like, that's what people see. And that's what my buddy had seen what he described close to as, he described the LBLB sketch as probably one of the best variants of what he had seen. But Dogman, especially, that's one of the bigger sketches right there. And I think that's one of the best sketches of a Dogman.
Yeah, no, it was good. I'm glad I picked that one. I was just looking at some of them I'm like, oh, that's pretty much a classic, classic shape. That
was a great answer to my question, by the way. I mean, I really appreciate the answer.
Absolutely.
Because, like I was saying, any animal, deers, they know when you're downrange. They smell by the wind. And maybe these creatures are just smart enough not to come back in that area. You may set up a trail camp, and you're like, no. They was just there, so we're not going to go back there.
Absolutely. And I think to add on to it a little bit more, Bigfoot's they obviously know the woods a bit more than us because they're in it every day. So when you look for patterns, when you look for little twigs that are messed around like an alphabet from their own way of language for how they migrate to wherever they're at in territory, they're going to know when someone's around and they're going to hide. They're going to hide well. They're going to hide to the point where you're never going to find one. When I was out investigating in March, it wasn't on my mind, but I do know that there was something around there. We also spoke to a gentleman when we were leaving that claimed to have seen it with his buddies one night when they were out off-roading. So, it goes to show you that maybe there is something there. But then again, maybe they were just pulling our twig because, hey, obviously we're investigators. We have all this equipment on us. We're not FBI. We don't have badges. So clearly we're doing something. So maybe they were pulling our twig. But I mean, the existence of these creatures, they're smart in the woods. And guarantee they're not going to figure out that, hey, listen, someone's there. Let's just go ahead and go the opposite direction they're going to go in. Because they'll never find us there. And it's basically what happens. I don't know how you guys have it shaped where you guys reside, but I'm sure you have like these long, narrow roads of just woods that are all in between that truckers take. And there's so much weird things that happen around there, I guarantee. But we don't know. I can tell you one thing, though. I can take a statistic that says maybe 50% of truckers have strange phenomena encounters when they're on the road.
Yeah, that's Austin. You had a couple of those things, like you said, when you're out deer hunting. When there's been a couple of instances where you've had that. Yeah,
it's. I mean, I've been hunting the area in Ocala for 6 years now, and it's just we got on this one road. Because like to the left is like the main road, main drag. Everyone runs it. Cars can go through. It's clay road, and then to go off road to go to our hunting spots, just to the right a little bit. And we were coming up on it, and then all of a sudden, something just walked across the road. At first, I was like, it's a deer, and I stopped. We were getting ready, and I was like, no, it looks like a person. And then for some reason, I was like, it's a turkey, but it was too big. And then I said, just go over there and see what it is. Disappeared. I mean, it could have been my imagination. And that's why I was like, oh, maybe it's just my imagination, because I can't remember exactly. Maybe that same season or whatever. We go down the main highway that everybody drives on asphalt, and there's this one main drag that you go down. You can go down there and get some camps and whatnot. And we always look left, like, to see what's over there. And for the first time, we saw a deer in the main of the road. We're like, oh shit! We fucking stopped in the middle of the road, caused an accident, went left, started loading the gun up, and I was like, damn, it's not out of season, but it was like just barely enough for me to shoot. I was over 16, so we were watching it, we were looking at it, and then someone came up behind us with an under 16-year-old kid that could shoot it. We're like, hey, over there, bring your dog, get in the scent. They spent 30 minutes, couldn't find a scent. And we've seen their dogs before, and he's like, dude, there's nothing out here. I'm like, we saw it, we tracked it, but as soon as that damn truck showed up, gone. I was like, oh, come on, man, it's not funny. But I don't know, man.
That's when the legend of Ginger Squatch was born. After he told me that story, as soon as he did it, that's when I crafted that whole backstory. But no, yeah, all jokes aside, yeah,
it could be anything, man. You never know. It could be. It's. I don't know. We talk about it a lot with April too. It's your mindset. I could have been really relaxed that time, and I just wasn't looking properly. You never know. It's the woods. Anything could be out there, at all. I mean.
The woods have so much mystery to them, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm attracted to the idea of discussing cryptids and paranormal, because the woods, 90% of horror films have woods. There's always that instance. And I think I grew up in horror, so evidently I guess it was meant to be, because you're looking at a lot of people who have encounters, and some people, even when they camp, people come across campsites that are torn up. People look across their own campsites that are torn up. They could be gone for periods of time, and then it looks like someone ransacked their camp. It leaves off that fear that like there's somebody out there or something else out there that's watching us. And of course it happens all the time. But one of the scariest things about, I think, the woods as well is that not just what's out there, but when your mindset is thinking all these things, you're putting yourself more in danger of yourself, because now you're psychologically affecting it.
Yeah.
You're affecting yourself. And I think that's something that's overlooked a bit when people go out there. I know that I've spoken to people who've never been in the woods a whole lot, and they get all these thoughts in their head thinking, oh my God, what, you mentioned earlier about like, oh, if a twig or branch falls, oh my God, a Bigfoot, or, something like that. Yeah, no, that's some people freak out and they're thinking, oh my God, serial killer. And that really freaks me out, because it's like, you're gullible to think anything. You probably think a big boom from thunder is a bomb. And I mean, thunder does sound like a bomb, at least the storms we get by over here in Jersey. But point taken, I mean, it's just the fact that the woods, they do have a lot of factor to it, and psychologically, the human mind plays a role in that.
Oh, yeah. I feel safe in the woods, man, every year. I mean, there's got to be thousands and thousands of us running through with trucks and dogs and guns, and knock on wood, no one ever gets killed. No one gets injured because we're smart, But
see, you guys, for you though, like you're intelligent about it. You're not like gullible about it.
Yeah.
You've been doing this also for a while too, so you also are experienced.
Yeah.
When people who are inexperienced are going out there and they're thinking all these things, and it's like, oh my God, like what do we do? What do we do? These people can barely pitch a tent or make a campfire.
And they're in the middle of the woods. There's been times, man. Like we know of an area where a mom and her cubs stay, bottom of the lake, and we were sitting there waiting, and they're running dogs and whatnot, and then right behind us we heard this crinkling, and when Florida deer are smart, they're small, we know that so when you hear something, you're like, it's not a deer, there's no way. The deer are smart, they're quiet. So something rustling behind us, I'm like, we're dead. It's mama bear, we're screwed. And it just took off. Later on to find out it was a deer. It was scared by the dogs, but I didn't know. I thought it was mama bear coming to kill us because we're in her den. We didn't know, but it's my mind playing tricks.
Yeah, Abe was just like, you believe the Jersey Devil is real?
I was asked this a while back, and personally, when I was much younger, as a matter of fact, elementary school I went to had a book on Jersey Devil. It's an outdated book now, but the book at the time, it was written in 2002 by two authors. I forgot their names. That's how old it is. But the book itself had a lot of detail about the Jersey Devil legend, but didn't have enough validity to it because all the encounters of it took place before technology really advanced, before we even crafted advanced weaponry. We basically, all these sightings took place before World War II. So
yeah,
you have a series of a time period here that is in the early stages of the Great Depression, where people are seeing this flying hominid. You have a sheriff or a local officer who is putting up signs looking for a giant man bat. But they don't know how else to describe it, which makes it very freaky. I think what makes it even worse, too, is the fact that with the Jersey Devil, there's not enough investigators out there trying to find it. I myself, as a native, I don't know where to begin with it. It's a tough thing to think about because there's not a lot of evidence about it. And I think it's even far worse of the fact being is that because we don't have a lot of information about it, I feel that also kind of compromises the truth behind it. Do I think that there is a flying creature out there? Possibly. Does it resemble a devil? Possibly, but I don't think it's really a devil. It could be looking like a devil. That's why they call it that. Maybe it's some sort of animal hybrid that we don't know about. And that's why it's the Jersey Devil, because it looks like a devil like that. Same discussion's been brought up about the Mothman. That's one of the earlier sketches, actually, of the Jersey Devil. You can see like the giraffe-looking head, long neck, and then the wings.
The devil tail.
That devil tail too, man. That's a.
Yeah. Everybody get binoculars out.
And the funny thing is too is that people who have seen something like that, they swear that it was not a bat. So it makes me wonder. It's like, well, could it be an animal hybrid? But the color and the change of all of these creatures have changed over the years. I mean, the Jersey Devil, people describe it now. The sketches that are updated look more devil-like, but that's where I have my issue with it's true or not. Because yeah, I mean, listen, it might be, but when we're glorifying it like a monster a bit more, like, I mean, and that's also done by like, see, people have combined like the Wendigo with the Jersey Devil, as you can see the antlers and whatnot, and you know that's a great artist illustration, but like that's where I also kind of see, well, if that's what people are seeing, or more or less that's what people haven't seen, but what look might be what they're seeing, that really screws with the field a bit, because it kind of shows it like a horror monster. If it's a real creature, then we have to kind of give a basic description. But it also could be said about dogmen, because they look like werewolves. But I mean, yeah, people describe it as, or Bigfoot, because Bigfoot's like looking like intimidating apes. But you know, that's how we describe them best. Jersey Devil, though, to answer that in a long answer, I think it is a hybrid creature. I really do. I don't think it's an actual myth. The myth goes back almost 200-something years. If a creature has been able to live long enough to that, then that is an evolved, I guess you could say, maybe a dino or an evolved.
Yeah, I could.
You know, like a pterodactyl, maybe. No, I mean, who knows? But the descriptions, the sketch, it definitely changes the pace of things, because the way it looks. Then you look at that artwork too, and that's really good artwork. As a designer, I love details like that. But when you look at it too, it's like, if that's what people are seeing, then then how come we don't have a lot more information on it? Because you can look up books about it, but I can guarantee you there's not a lot of proof. There's not a lot of encounters. So it's tough. It's really tough to call.
Yep. No, that's yeah. So no, I looked up the time, and my God, it's flown.
It has. So are you a graphic designer as well? Do you do freelance work, or you just do it for yourself?
Well, currently right now, I'm trying to get into more freelance, trying to build out as a brand. I do a variety of things: logos, posters, business cards. So mostly a lot of decals. So yeah, I'm a graphic designer. I'm also going to school for it. So, you know, I'm doing that. And then once I complete that, basically go out there and figure it out. That's another thing too. I mean, that's kind of a reason why I took a step back a bit, was to focus more on that. So I can go ahead and, you know, be the best designer, because it's a very competitive field and there's always work for it. But
yeah. Do you want to, do you have anything you want to plug, like place for them to get a hold of you to get some work done?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Plug away, man.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So in the long run, I mean, for me, yeah, as I'm a graphic designer, you know, anybody looking for that decal or detail, you know, you can always give me a run at chriscyrusindeed@gmail.com. And that's for any inquiry, even cryptid wise. I'm very open to that. You know, people who want to talk about their reports, or if they're open to wanting to discuss research with me, that outlet's open to that as well. chriscyrusindeed@gmail.com. So yeah.
All right. No, I appreciate it, man. You know, want to thank you for coming on. I mean, I know, like I said, and talking about it too. I mean, it's always tough, you know, when things like that happen.
Yeah.
It's just.
Can I like go off? Like, can I just say a little something though? Like,
yeah.
And just something I just figured, you know, to clear off any loose ends. Anybody who is listening, or for those out there in general, you know, for what this field is. When I first started doing it, it was great. I was adjacent to so many things, but seeing it grow and evolve and being put in that direction of seeing how things play out, it really messes with you. And I do think that people are affected mentally. They take sides because they are afraid of being attacked, and they definitely want to uphold whoever. And surely I think that's the most cowardly thing to do, but at the same time, that somebody understands that that's not why we're here. I'm not here to bully anybody. I'm not here to call anybody out. I'm here to research at the time, but I'm also here to do a show and here to discuss it with three gentlemen. And any animosity, if anybody is listening in the past, I don't have it against you. If you have it against me, that's on you. And yeah, when I first started doing all this, I may have been a little rough and hard ass, but you know what? We all grow up, we all evolve, we all do what we got to do. And that's why I'm doing my own thing. And you can be along for the ride or you may not be along for the ride. But what it comes down to is that there are researchers out there. You have the individual Paul. You have Abe who are in here. They're investigators. Paul was the gentleman I mentioned about Daniel Boone. He'd be a great guest for you guys too because he knows a lot about that location. You know,
Nice.
Another individual who was very big with my interest with all this was a guy named Kirk Stokes as well. You know, his videos of Dogmen and Bigfoot and orbs really fascinated me. And I have, and the whole joist of all I'm saying here is I'm focused on my present. People can be stuck in the past, that's fine, but I'm focused more on my present, and the past is gone, and I'm ready to go explore the future. So I hope we can all stick together and choose from that and understand that conflicts in the field are not necessary. We all should be working together. And I hope one day we can all accommodate to that and not have to worry about fearing ridicule or getting into a messy situation that shouldn't be needed. But, gentlemen, it was such a pleasure. Really.
Yeah, no, it's the same. Pleasure is ours, man. That was we can't thank you enough for coming on. This was fantastic. It was a great conversation. And it's amazing when you have these things how fast an hour goes.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it really is. So. Everybody, check him out. Once again, it was Chris Cyrus.
Gmail.
Chris Cyrus, indeed, at gmail.com.
Indeed.
Or if you want to look me up on Facebook, Chris Cyrus, go right ahead.
Right.
Feel free to, whatever works best for everybody.
Yeah, go check him out. Support him. Definitely, can't thank you enough for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. We'll do it again. We'll have to do this down the road again.
I'm very open to interview any of you guys as well.
All right.
Doors always open.
It's a whole different environment when we get ourselves, off script. Yeah, we always have fun. So yeah, let us know. Like I said, we'll see what we got going on with the schedules, what we can figure out, because it's the same thing. When you got everything else going on, it's like we try to fit them in when we can. So, all right, everybody. Chris Cyrus, appreciate it, sir. Thanks, everybody. Check him out. This episode was brought to you by Nanny Cakes. Go to Nanny Cakes 407 on Facebook or give her a phone call at 407-923-2898. Mention the Three Beers podcast. You're going to save 15% on that cake order here in Central Florida area. We are on all the social medias, YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell. We appreciate it. Try to get those numbers up because that means a lot. Patreon.com, Three Beers podcast, become a beardo. Redbubble.com is our new merchandise store. Go check that out. One of these times we'll get a ginger squatch, design going out there, so we can get that out there and put that as a design, because I think we can craft a nice backstory about this and make this happen. So check that out. Rebroadcast every Thursday night on Patriot Radio. Download the Zeno Radio app. We're at 10 p.m. every Thursday, courtesy of J&J Beard Company out of New Jersey. It's pretty close to up there, probably where you guys are at. Yep. So jjbeardco.com. Check them out. Thank them for doing that. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the comments. Really appreciate all of those. Chris Cyrus, once again, man, I really appreciate all your insight and your expertise in this area. That was a fantastic show, and we really look for big things coming for you in the graphic design world. So everybody, appreciate you watching. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.